we got an action-packed afternoon, so I'm going to get into it. And as we dive into this topic of group investing and opportunity zones. So if you don't know, my name is Steve Peterson. I'm the broker and owner of Infinity Investments, which is a commercial real estate brokerage and investment firm that I established in November 2009 in Oakland, California. Now, that was significant because that was, I don't know if the middle is the right word or the beginning is the right word of the Great Recession, but it was in the midst of the storm of the Great Recession. And it actually was a great time to start the company. And it was a great time to be investing in real estate, as if you were buying properties then, you was winning, right? At that time, though, a lot of people, we didn't know where the bottom was. And in fact, it slipped a little bit more going into 2010, kind of bottomed out 2010, 2011. And I just want to say that it was the case for me, and such is the case as many other entrepreneurs, that sometimes the best time to start your enterprise is in the midst of adversity, in the midst of the storm. So that's when we got going. I also had the opportunity to serve as president for a couple very important real estate organizations. I was the president of the Associated Real Property Brokers, which is the Oakland chapter of NARAB. NARAB is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. I served as president of ARPB in 2015 and 16. I also served as president of KRAB, which is the California Association of Real Estate Brokers, the state board, our California State Board of NARAB. And I had that honor and pleasure to serve as president 2017 and 18. And if you don't know what NARAB is, and we are called Realtors, members of NARAB were called Realtors as opposed to Realtors. NARAB was formed in 1947 as a ways and means for Blacks to be able to do business in the real estate brokerage world. We were not allowed to join the Realtors during that era of time. So we had to come together and have a network of support of being able to market properties and support each other in the business. And we stand for democracy and housing to this day. And NARAB was a part of all the fair housing laws that were established once upon a time, especially in the 60s. The Rumford Act, we were a big part of championing that and bringing that to fruition. So that's what NARAB is, and that's what it means to be a realtist. So support that cause, and if you're an agent or broker, you should be joining your local chapter. I also had the great honor and pleasure to serve as president of NorCal CCIM. And if you don't know what CCIM stands for, that is a designation in the commercial real estate world. It stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member. And it is a rigorous curriculum that you have to go through in order to get the designation. You have to also close a certain amount of business. And that is also a real estate trade association in the commercial real estate world. I had the honor of being president in 2018, the first Black president of NorCal CCIM. So it was great. And those two organizations, the Realtors organization and CCIM, have been instrumental to me in building my business in the real estate world. And I suggest that you network with those groups and other groups that will allow you to grow your contacts and allow you to grow yourself. And if you so desire to join a leadership team, it will grow your executive skill sets, your executive prowess, what it means to be an executive in the business world. So that was very, very good experience for me in helping me to grow and expand my company and bring some of this content and knowledge to y'all. All right, our company, we specialize in apartment buildings, the brokerage, sale, and syndications of small to mid-sized apartment buildings. We do other commercial real estate as well, but apartment buildings, multifamily properties, that's the sweet spot. Now, let's get into it. Group investing, what exactly is it? All right, and you know, we can break it down to make it real simple. It's when two or more investors get together to acquire property and they effectively are a group that owns that property. So you and one other person, you're a group. Structure, however, can take many forms, such as joint tenancy, joint ventures, tenants in common, general unlimited partnerships, limited liability companies, LLCs, real estate investment trusts, community land trusts, opportunity zone funds. These are just the top. Delaware statutory trusts, DSTs, very popular. In fact, DSTs, Delaware statutory trusts, are more popular today than tenants in common. All of these structures are legal ways of holding title as a group. And there's more of them. These are the most popular. Every one of them has its pros and cons. Joint tenancy is probably the worst way to own properties together as a group, because the interest, one of the joint tenants passes away, their interest goes to one of the other joint tenants, not their family or their heirs. So not really a great way of structuring your generational wealth, right? Although a lot of joint venture deals where the parties are joint venturing together are to actually structured differently than joint tenants. But that has been a way that many people in the past have held title. Tenants in common, and same thing with Delaware statutory trust, allow you to own a partial interest in the property. So you get a percentage of the deed. Let's just say you and 4 people bought a property and you all were tenants in commons equally. Each person would have a 25% interest in the property, and particularly, this is important, has a 25% interest in the deed. You have a what's called a deeded interest. That's important because if someone is conducting a 1031 exchange into a property, into a group, that individual needs to have a deeded interest into the property. And you can do that within the tenants in common structure. You can do that within the Delaware statutory trust structure. So your 1031 exchange can be valid. All right, general and limited partnerships with the LPs and GPs. Really, general partnerships are not a good way to own property together. Limited partnerships can be. And there's some pros and cons between limited partnerships and LLCs. And I would advise you, if you're putting together a group or if you're investing into a group, make sure you have an attorney that represents you looking at stuff. If you're investing into a group's going to have an attorney. So you should have an attorney that you work with and you know and you trust. Not somebody you just call off the internet. Can you look at these deals? Can you look at these forms? Because attorneys love to blow a deal apart if it means them getting more fees. But somebody who knows commercial real estate, knows investment properties, knows about this group investing, has done that before, can put their eyes on your deal and make sure you're on point. And so there's some pros and cons between limited partnerships and limited liability companies. Limited partnerships back in the 80s and 90s was the way to go. Late 90s and 2000s, LLCs came about, and that's what most investors have been rocking with for the last 20 years or so. Although I have a client of mine who's saying, hey, now he's going back to limited partnerships. And there's some reasons for that. Talk to your attorney, talk to your tax folks, make sure they can break that down for you. But very similar, both these structures is that investors will have an interest in the LLC, a membership interest in the LLC or in a limited partnership, not necessarily the deed. So this is important when you're doing 1031 exchanges, that make sure the property needs to be like in a TIC or a DST, because if they just exchange into a limited partnership or an LLC, that could invalidate their exchange because they need to have a percentage of the deed. When you just put up money and you're a percentage of the LLC has the deed, you got a percentage of the LLC, which works fine if you're just investing cash, right? But these are ways essentially for you to take your liability and limit it only to the capital you invest, or if you're putting the group together, the capital that someone else invests. Now, that's why it's limited. Why that important? Because in real estate, as you may well know, you have the risk of losing your money, and yes, that is a risk. A lot of times people think it only goes up. Well, it doesn't. Sometimes it goes down. Most of the times it goes up. And if you make a wise decision, you're going to make some money. But you can invest your money and lose it. That's the first risk. In real estate, you can invest your money, your cash, lose that. But also, if you got a mortgage, let's say, you could have the mortgage foreclosed. And that's a big ding on your credit. They can potentially come after you, all that stuff. Somebody can slip and fall and bust their head on the stairs. They can come after you and sue. There's a lot of liabilities within running business. I don't want to discourage you. I'm just keeping it 1,000, keeping it real, because there is a lot of liabilities. When you limit your liability as let's say a limited member in an LLC, your only liability is the capital you invest. Let's say the property gets lost and goes to foreclosure. You're not liable for that mortgage. Somebody slips and falls and busts their head. You're not liable for that. Now, you should all have good insurance, with umbrella liability to help out with slip and falls and tenants trying to get over. But when you invest the capital and you're just limited to that risk. Very, very, very important, you guys, especially if you're new to this and you're putting together a group of people to invest with. Make sure you understand the liabilities involved and as much as you possibly can limit them. But also real estate investment trusts. Now these are for bigger deals and these are like stock market companies. I own some stocks in a company called Avalon Bay. They are what's called a REIT, and they own a bunch of Class A apartment buildings across the country. And most REITs are publicly traded, but a lot of them are private. But these are for huge deals, deals with a lot of investors. If you're putting 2 or 3 investors together, it's probably not the structure you want. But you can invest in REITs, make good return, good quality cash on cash return without owning the sticks and bricks of the property. Community land trust is a way that nonprofits and government entities are owning properties together and kind of deeming them for the community. A lot of good work being done here in Oakland and Berkeley with that. Also, what we'll talk a little bit later about is opportunity zone funds. Big, 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 big new thing. Great way for groups to get together and invest and attract capital to go and invest for your projects. All right, so just a couple of the structures and then breaking down what it is you're investing as a group. Now, side note to this, we're talking about for the purposes of this presentation, commercial and investment property, right? However, you could use this same idea or ideology and apply that to buying 1 to 4 unit properties. I know people doing that for 2 to 4 units where they're buying it as their personal residence, buying it with other people, buying it with family members. This is totally possible. You need to talk to your mortgage person that's working with you on it and structure how you go about doing that. But you absolutely can do that. It even can be done on a house that you live in. But you need to, make sure you're working with the right mortgage people, the real estate agents, and you got an attorney involved structuring the legal documents. We're talking about commercial investment property today, but I just want y'all to know, and a lot of people who may be on this webinar may have been at the Earn Your Leisure event that I spoke at last Saturday, where a lot of people were looking at, well, hey, can we put together a couple of people to buy a home and live in the home? Or can we put together a couple of people to buy this fourplex and we live there? And the answer is yes, yes, you can. And I inspire you to do so if that's the best way for you to get into home ownership. Purposes of this presentation, we're talking about investments, and absolutely a lot of the big deals you see around you when you walk anywhere downtown or drive anywhere, those are group investments. Now, here's some of the reasons that you might consider investing with the group. Because you'll be able to buy more property than you could purchase by yourself individually. You can limit your liability to only the capital that you invest, eliminating the mortgage risk and other property operational risks that we just discussed. You can also eliminate the management hassle and responsibility. Now, that is if you are passively invested. If you are the one putting this together, you can even hire a property manager to handle all the day-to-day issues, which I do advise if you're not in the business. But even if you hire that property manager, if you're the one putting the group together, you have to be the asset manager. You have to manage the manager. You have to manage the asset. You have to manage the financials. You got to communicate with the investors, and you will be responsible for it. All right. So that's if you're putting the group together. If you're just putting up some cash, you don't have to worry about that. You're only putting up your cash. Now that could be at risk. But that's your only risk. And yet you are, if you're putting that cash, you are not dealing with the tenants, the toilets, the issues that come along with managing the property. All right, and you also are able to leverage the strengths of other members of the group. What I mean by that, as you put 2 or 3 or 4 people together, somebody may have some strength, some skill sets in construction. Somebody may know how to manage property. Somebody may know how to, maneuver credit to be able to get lines of credits and loans and refinance. Somebody may know how to raise capital. Somebody may be an expert at finding properties and selling properties. You're able to take the strengths of the group, put them together for the greater good, and that's how you're able to accomplish more with the group. Have you ever, I know we got several people, 22 people here. Have you ever, I don't know if you have made an offer on a property, and you can chat this in, and I'll go back to the chat at the end. Have you ever been outbid for investment property? there's a good chance that you are bidding against the group, especially in the fix and flip world. People that fix and flip houses and stuff like that, usually it's a group. There's some people that are individual, but even the individual has investors, right? So they're operating as a well-organized team, and you're trying to compete against them with just you. So understand what you're dealing with. And then you can understand that you can put yourself in that same position, if not better, knowing what you know, how to leverage that. But when you're out here in this world, especially when you're in fix and flip, but especially in commercial real estate and apartment buildings, many times when you're making those offers, you're going against the group. All right. And you might be the best, most savvy investor, but if you're going against a group that's well organized and well capitalized, that's gonna be a tough fight. So understand that, and understand that that's what the power of group investing can bring you. And these are some of the benefits of why you would want to invest in that. Now, I keep it real. Keep it real in these presentations, because there's also cons, negatives, things that ain't cool to investing in a group. So let's talk about it. First of all, the investment is illiquid in nature, right? What that means, it's not liquid. You put your money in the stock market REIT, and you're like, hey, I need to take that money out and go buy some groceries or whatever. Or I need to take that money out and go buy another property. Well, you can sell your stock, get your money in a day or two, or real quickly. If you got some money in a 401k, it might take a couple, if you want to, it might take a couple weeks or whatever, but it's pretty liquid. In real estate in general, if you own a house, a property, an apartment building, you say, hey, I want to get my money out. You got to sell that property, or you got to refinance that property, or you got to sell a partial interest in that property. You've got to do something that's probably going to take at least 30 to 60 to 90 days to make that happen. And that's real estate in general. Now, take on top of that, a group is you don't own the whole property. You can't solely, and then if you're passively investing in that group, you don't even make the management decisions. So if you need to get your money back prior to the horizon of the investment, the group says, hey, this is a 5-year investment. You get to year 3 and like maybe you had a life event and you need to get that money back. That's going to be tough to do. And you're not legally obligated to just go on this, I need my money back. It don't work like that. The group has to decide to sell the property, refinance the property. Now, you can sell off your interest in the property or the group individually at any time and get your cash that way. However, the next con is transfer of individual ownership interests can be very complicated. All right. However, it can be done. But what I'm saying as a con is complicated. It's not as easy as like putting, hey, I'm going to sell my stock. Or it's not even easy as, hey, I'm going to list my property on the market and get it sold. A little bit different than that. Be done though. But it is certainly a con of it. One of the negatives that you need to think about and you need to consider. You also lose complete control of operations. Even if you are the manager, the sponsor putting this together, and you will have a management, you will have the right to manage the property. Certain things you need approval for, like if you're going to sell or refinance, things like that. It's a group decision, and there needs to be a managing member, and every group is going to have legal documents that set up that group. If it's an LLC, like for instance, that's going to be an operating agreement. That operating agreement is going to spell out the rights and responsibilities of everyone involved. And so that's, where that control or that operational functions, roles and responsibilities are broken down at. Well, understand it ain't just you running your property, all right? And so therefore, understand that you're dealing with other investors, partners that can be difficult to deal with. If you're raising capital and all your investors, let's say, are private notes, and maybe they're not owners with you, but they're lenders, right? You have to consider that as well. You're dealing with other people, and that can be difficult at times, right? Again, not to dissuade you or discourage you from doing this, but I'm keeping it real. You need to know the pros and the cons of everything that you're going to do. I mean, everything you're considering before you do that. You just don't want to go in like, oh, it's all peaches and cream. You need to know what the downside risks are. All right. And sometimes at the end of the day, dealing with partners can be difficult. All right. Decisions when to refinance and sell may certainly be group decisions. So that's why, at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that I served as president of this, and that. And going through that process, what I learned was how to deal with people in a board. When you're a board, you're sitting on the board for this, that, or the other, you're dealing with other sharp, smart people that are also volunteers that are not paid on a salary, and you can't just dictate to. Things are a group decision. So when the president of the board wants to get something done, he or she can't just say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. It is what it is." He or she's got to get buy-in from at least the majority of the board, and things get voted on. So that skill applies directly to putting a group together to invest, because you got to get, it's like a board. These are not people, these are not employees, these are investors. Uh, and if you invest in it, you're investing in a leader who's going to take, hopefully that person's a good leader. And these are group decisions upon what's going to happen to the property. So if you got an idiot person that is running your group, that might not, he or she may not make the best decisions. Or if you got a group of investors and there's two people that just you can't deal with, and that can be a challenge. All right. So that's part of you understanding going into this. Do the pros outweigh the cons? I think so. I think so. And you guys may be chatting in. I see we got a few chats, a couple questions. I'm gonna get to y'all at the end of this, but maybe tell me what you think and the pros and cons, and maybe after the presentation, let me know. But there's pros, there's cons. I think pros will outweigh the cons, and that's why we're doing this and talking about this. All right, now let's get a little bit more technical with the whole idea of group investing. Essentially, group investing is syndication. All right, and group investing is often referred to as syndication. And the word group investing and syndication are often interchanged for each other. And a syndicate may be defined as a group of people who form an association to undertake a business transaction. Now, I got that phrase from a book. If you're interested in this topic, I suggest you get off Amazon. And it's called It's a Whole New Business. The author is Gene Trowbridge. He's also a CCIM. He is the country's probably leading attorney on the topic of syndications. So if you are particularly interested in putting these groups together, then order that book off the internet. It's a Whole New Business. Now there's an updated version. So make sure when you go on Amazon, you get the updated version, because some laws have changed, actually to the advantage of the sponsor. The sponsor is the one who puts the group together. So if you're interested in this, dive into the content of It's a Whole New Business. Very, very good book. It's technical like a textbook, but it's written so that from an entrepreneur's standpoint, he's a lawyer, but also an entrepreneur, that you can relate to and understand, and you can take that information directly and apply it to you putting together a syndicate on your own. So when we say syndicate, it's a group that buys property. All right, that's the technical term for it. All right, and just an example is you want to buy a 20-unit building that costs $2 million, but you don't have personally the resources to do that, so you form a syndicate. And this is just one way. You can form a syndicate of 10 investors who put up $200,000 each to acquire the property. Or you can put up a syndicate together, 10 people with $100,000, and then you guys go get a mortgage for $1 million and you put $1 million down. All right. The bottom line is this can be structured a few different ways, but that's at the core, that's what a syndicate is. That's what a group investment is. And hopefully you can see how this can relate or translate also to people who want to buy their personal residence in a 2 to 4 unit or a 1 single family house, right? But again, you see directly how it applies to the commercial and investment real estate world. All right, now let's get into some of this nitty gritty. If you are interested in putting this stuff together, what you essentially have to do is get good at raising money. Now, raising money is a skill set. All right. And that skill is a little bit different. Like for us in the brokerage world, it's a little bit different than selling property. It's a little bit different than buying property. If you're an investor and you just go out and buy property on a hunt, and if you're a broker and you sell it, it's a little bit different, but very, very similar. Some of the same principles apply. But let me just break this down. The rules of money of raising money have changed with the Jobs Act of 2012, creating avenues to advertise investment opportunities for small businesses and startups. However, the best way to raise money is still in developing relationships. And it's still, and I think it always will be, in developing relationships. The internet has given us some new avenues of how to do that, but relationship building is the best way. And here are a few methods of finding money for deals. First of all, networking at real estate seminars, trade shows, events, mixers, expos, like the one that just happened here in Oakland last Saturday. The EYL Earn Your Leisure podcast group came out to Oakland. They rented out the convention center at the Oakland Marriott, and it was about 1,500 people there for a day from 10 to 7 o'clock, and they gave straight content. And everybody there was very, very engaged in this real estate process. So there was a lot of networking that went on at that event. And events like that, especially in person, when they come back, you want to be, as they are coming back, I should say, you want to be at as many of these as possible that are legitimate meetings. When I say by legitimate, where they're actually giving real content and the event is going to attract people who are serious about the business. Some real estate events, they advertise on TV and they offer you to give you all this stuff. You get there, they don't tell you or teach you anything. They advertise the boot camp, right? So every real estate event is not equal, but you want to make sure you are going out to a bunch of them and networking, developing your contact database back. Also, you have pre-existing business of some kind. Your acquaintances or associates in your business and around your business should know what you're doing. If you're going to put your group together and you want to let them know, approach them about what you're doing, let them know about it, and just let them know if they know of anyone looking to invest. You have projects and you're going to be searching out projects, right? And that goes for a lot of people who are in the real estate business. If you have current or past clients, those could be a great source for investors for you if you find a great deal. I put in here, depends on your business. Some businesses, like if you're in the stock market, you work for a financial firm, or like you're a banker, you can't do what they call selling away. You can't take clients from that business and use them for something else, right? It's called selling away. I don't know all the logistics, but I know it's frowned upon, especially in the financial industry, because they don't want you, hey, go over here and do that. They lose money and they come back and sue the firm. So it depends on what business you're in and how that's structured. But if you're an independent real estate broker, you're a real estate agent working deals, and you happen to find a great property and looking for investors, past clients or current clients can be a great source because they're looking to invest into what you have, right? So that's why keeping your reputation good is critical when you're out here doing business. Even if you're just selling houses, you're just brokering apartment buildings or office buildings, keeping your rep on point, number one, builds your brand equity, but also allows you to do things like, hey, I'm buying this apartment building over here. It's an excellent return. Are you open to investing into a project like that type of thing? You can't even say that if you don't have a good reputation. So make sure that you take care of your clients in your business and whatever it is that you're doing, because they could also one day be investors into your group. Now, you always want to have attorneys, accountants, people who are handlers for people with money in your network, in your database, and you want to let them know what you're doing. I've done a lot of deals from people who got referred by their accountant. Say, hey, talk to this guy, he's active. I think that's just like a business rule in general, right? You want to have a lot of the people who are the handlers for the money be in your network, and they need to know that you're legitimate, because they don't want to just send you somebody and they're like, I don't know, if this Steve guy, if you can get done. So you got to make sure you keep your rep up, and you got to make sure you develop those relationships with people who are the handlers of the money. Also, people like wealth managers and financial planners. Now, we talked about the whole selling away concept. So some of them may not be able to, but if they're independent and they like real estate and they like you and they know you, they trust you, they may send the client to you, says, this client said to me he wants to invest in real estate. So you should talk to them about it. That's happened to me on several times, whether selling properties or putting investors together for a group. All right. Now, another So especially if you're out there looking for properties to buy and to purchase, are current property owners. Current property owners might want to invest with you, but they also might say, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling this property. You want to, you guys want to buy it." So you need to be in communication with property owners on a consistent basis. But like, I think that's again a rule of thumb for all investors, brokers, agents, because that's how you find properties, right? But it's also how you can find investors. Consider this for a moment. Let's say you're an agent, right? And somebody wants to sell a property. You approach them about selling a property. They sell it. It's investment property. They're probably going to need to exchange. And when they do that exchange, if you can approach them with, "Hey, this is an opportunity I've got. You can exchange into this, get a deeded interest. Maybe it's a TIC structure. Maybe it's a DST structure, whatever." Now you're providing value to the client, because not only did you sell their property, now you can bring them into an investment that's profitable for them. And now you've, kind of maximized your relationship with that person by bringing them more value. You brought yourself more value, right? So consider that. Property owners are a great source. Now, last thing to talk about is kind of this new idea of crowdfunding. It's been around it's been around forever, but it's been coined, the phrase has been coined as part of this Jobs Act of 2012, which now allows entrepreneurs to raise money online and market and advertise following specific rules. Okay, and that has opened up the capital world, particularly for real estate. So these are just some ideas of raising money. Now, let's talk about who are some of the people who would be ideal prospects for investing into you. Individuals who have what's called self-directed IRAs. So there's companies like Entrust and Pensco who help people who take their money from their traditional 401k or IRA and place it in one of these custodians, and then they want to use that capital to invest into your deal or other deals like that. That they are a great source, because as investors, those funds need to stay invested for a period of time. And if they take those funds out, they get penalized, because this is a retirement account. So what they're simply trying to do is build their asset base and hope that asset base grows in value and cash flows, because all of that value and all that cash flow goes into their IRA. Great source for prospective investors. Also, people that are conducting 1031 exchanges and looking for passive income. A lot of people who are doing exchanges, not everyone, but a lot of them are they're selling that property that they had because they're looking to retire, they're looking to relax, they're looking for less management. A lot of times people sell property, it's a great cash flow, but you got to manage it. So if they can sell that property, invest with you, make more money and not have to manage it, that moves them closer to retirement, or at least they can make more money with less work. People love doing that, right? So those are 1031 exchanges are a great source for investors. Also, busy professionals who have capital to invest, but they don't have the time and expertise to acquire or operate properties. So these are executive tech workers. They're working 80 hours a week on their work. They're making 200, 300, 400, whatever. They just don't have time to go out and find deals. So if you can just go find deals and structure them and manage them, there's some value there. All right. Also, ambitious investors seeking to invest in projects larger than what they can buy on their own. So this is becoming common, especially in development world, but even in apartments where investors who do their own thing are coming together to buy bigger properties. And this happens a lot on 200, 300 unit buildings, right? And what this is people saying, "Hey, I can buy a 10 unit or 20 unit building, but I can't buy 100 unit. Maybe if me and you get together or we put our teams together, now we can go out and buy 200, 300 units," right? That whole idea of synergy that would then allow somebody like that to invest. Now, who was the type of person that would be down for that? Is somebody who's ambitious, and confident in their business, confident in their skills, so that they're not operating from a scarcity mindset, but they're like, "Hey, if we join forces, we can go and do more," right? And those can be great people to partner with. And those typically are great people to partner with, ambitious folks like that. Now, also, people who have realized their capital gain, and we're about to get off into that as we transition into opportunity zones and opportunity zone funds. But someone who a capital gain is a profit you make on the sale of an asset, business, stocks, real estate, fine art, precious metals, things of that nature. It's taxed differently than ordinary income. Ordinary income we make in our jobs and our businesses. This is the sale of an asset, capital gains, and in California, it can be very expensive. So a lot of those people are looking for methods to defer their capital gains taxes, and that can be done through a 1031 exchange or an opportunity zone fund where they invest with you in a deal, defer their capital gains taxes, and earn a return on your project. All right. So these, I talked about how to raise the money. I talked about who are some of the prospects for you. I wanted to, clarify what this whole thing is, break it down, the structure, the pros and cons, tell you how do you go about raising money, and then who are the ideal people you want to be talking to about this. And you may be listening to this, you may be fit into one of those boxes as an investor to passively invest in the group, or you may be saying, hey, I want to put this thing together. Either way it goes, that should be a value, particularly as we transition into the next topic. Now, I do this presentation kind of simultaneously. We're talking about group investing and opportunity zone. I can do a presentation on both these topics individually, talk for hours, right? But the reason I'm bringing these concepts together is because there's a lot of misunderstandings about opportunity zones, opportunity zone properties. And at the end of the day, an opportunity zone fund essentially is a syndicate, right? And so I wanted to bring these things together and help to demystify the two topics and actually mold them into one, one webinar, seminar, if you will. So what is a qualified opportunity zone? You probably heard about it. All right. And there's a bunch of different misunderstandings about it. But here's the definition of what it is. An opportunity zone is a designation created by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, allowing for certain investments in lower income areas to have tax advantages. The purpose of this program is to put capital to work that would be otherwise locked up due to the asset holder's unwillingness to trigger a capital gains tax. A lot of people don't want to sell their property, or a lot of people don't want to sell their business simply because they don't want to pay the 30 to 40% of capital gains tax. I don't blame them. Opportunity zones are census tracts generally comprised of economically distressed communities that qualify for the opportunity zone designation, according to the criteria outlined in 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So this is the actual definition of it. These opportunity zones, the zone is an area, physical area. That's what it's the census tract in any given city. And these are throughout the whole United States, right? So these zones are prime for investment. And many of these zones are already being redeveloped, gentrified, if you will, by the natural economic forces that are going on and some of the other economic forces that are going on. This spurs that growth because it gives tax advantages to the investment fund who wants to invest in these areas and develop them. And I've done seminars and webinars on the topic of gentrification. And the big thing about gentrification in the language of it is it has to do with outside investors coming into an area and building it up. And so one thing I've always said is that, hey, if you're in an area like Oakland, I'm from Oakland and people are from, if you take it upon yourself to build that neighborhood up, now that's redevelopment. You're redeveloping that area. If someone else comes from outside and they build it there, that's essentially gentrification, right? So good, bad, or indifferent, that's kind of what it is. And so opportunity zone funds and the structure of them allows for investors to defer their capital gains taxes by investing into these areas via the fund that I'm going to talk about, okay? Hopefully, this talk inspires you to take matters into your own hand and redevelop the areas that you're from or that you're at, or areas that you want to move into. I'm from Oakland. So if I'm going into a city like Stockton, which I am, which I truly believe in, and start redeveloping that area, all right, in a way, I'm gentrifying that area, but I'm looking to bring value to the area. And that's what I really want to talk about. Investors are always looking for yield and that. And if you're an investor, what I'm pushing is not just making money and making return deferring taxes. You want to do that, but bring value to these neighborhoods. Bring value to these opportunity zones. Bring opportunity to the opportunity zones, and I think it will pay you well. All right. Now, And I see there's a couple questions, hands up. I got y'all. Let me just roll through this and we're gonna come back to it. Now, we talked about the zone. Now let's talk about fund. Now, before I dive into the fund, a lot of people, especially in the real estate world, y'all, the broker world, you'll see properties that say, hey, the property's in the opportunity zone. If you buy this, you defer taxes. All right. That's not all the way true. There's a bunch of requirements that you have to, bunch of hoops you got to jump through in order to make that happen. One of them is that the funds that are where the capital is to be deferred have to be invested into an opportunity zone fund. And then the cash that is invested into that fund then have to be allocated to the specific property that is in the zone, right? So let's talk about that fund for a second. So to access these tax benefits, investors must invest in opportunity zones, specifically through opportunity funds. A qualified opportunity fund is a U.S. partnership or corporation, LLC, that intends to invest at least 90% of its holdings in one or more qualified opportunity zones. Because opportunity zones are intended to stimulate positive growth within designated communities, there are restrictions on the types of investments in which opportunity zone fund can invest. These investments are called qualified opportunity zone property, which is defined as any of the following. Understand that opportunity zone property doesn't have to only be real estate. It can be partnership interests in businesses that operate in a qualified opportunity zone. So it could be business. It could be stock ownership in businesses that operate most or all of their operations within a qualified opportunity zone. And of course, it can be property such as real estate located within the opportunity zone. Now, also, when there's some rules about what has to happen to the property or the business, funds, the opportunity zone fund has to not only acquire, but it doesn't even necessarily have to acquire, but has to invest a significant amount of money into the improvement of the property, into the improvements of the business. Okay, so you can't just buy a stabilized apartment building and because it's in the opportunity zone, you qualify for tax deferral. That's the mistake I see a lot of real estate agents and brokers making when they market their buildings. Now, you do want to market a building the fact that it's in an opportunity zone, but you don't want to mislead people to think that, hey, just because they bought that property in the zone, they're entitled to tax deferral. You got to establish the opportunity zone fund, you got to put the money in the opportunity zone fund, you got to redirect the money from the opportunity zone fund to that property, and then you have to invest a significant amount into the properties in physical improvement. And if you know, I won't go too much into this, but this is a little complicated how it works out. But essentially, every property on its tax roll has an allocation of value for the improvements on the property and the allocation of value for the land, right? So essentially, when you buy a property and for it to qualify for the OZ, is that you've got to invest essentially an amount equal to the improvements, the improved value of the property, the value of the improvements in the property outside of the land. So it's not going to just be a paint and carpet type of thing. If you're doing this, it has to be either complete rehab, complete remodel, ground up with development and expansion of a property. It's got to be a significant improvement. All right, that's a key piece. Again, a lot of people miss when they're looking into this or when agents and brokers are marketing properties. It is a good thing that the properties are located in the zone. So as an agent or broker, if you're marketing property, you want to put it out there. But you just want to make sure that in order for people to take advantage of the tax deferral, they got to go through the process of establishing a fund and making sure they do a lot of renovations and improvements to the property, real estate, or to the business. All right, in the business, that's a little bit different, but you got to improve it. You can't just buy something and just, hey, I got it, I'm renting it out. It needs to be improved. Very, very important. Okay, real quick breakdown on how this works. The fund is the parent entity that then invests its capital into the holding entity, which is the entity that owns or controls the property, business, or operation. The investor is essentially investing into a group, and that's why I put the group investing opportunity zone thing together so we can have a context of what's going on here. The investor is essentially investing into a group of funds that invest into a qualified activity, and in doing so, they can defer the capital gains, right? Now, side note, an investor can also establish a fund, fully fund it themselves, take all the capital and fully move it into their own property. So you can do an opportunity zone fund structured by yourself. But for most of us out here, these opportunity zones are groups, all right? And once it's in the fund, it's essentially in a group, all right? So I want to make that clear, right? However, one thing to think about, this golden state, the great state of California, California Franchise Tax Board does not recognize opportunity zone deferral. And therefore, if you realize again in California, you still have to pay the California capital gains, which is starting, I think, at 9.5%. Starting, you can go up more than that. So it's tough to run a business out here in Cali, right? But if you know how to bob and weave to the taxes, the fees, the laws, it makes your skill set pretty good, and you can do business anywhere. But understand that it is a little bit tougher when you're in California and for things like this, because they're not. So if you sell your property or you sell your business in the state of California and you roll your funds into an opportunity zone fund, that makes sense still, because you're not paying a minimum 21% plus, depending on your bracket, federal capital gain, but you're definitely going to pay the state. All right. So I just want to make that side note about this golden state that we're in. All right. Now, I've mentioned this before, but to say it again, in order to qualify, the fund must invest a significant amount of capital into the improvements of the business or the property. All right. Very, very important. Now, here's some of the pros and cons, and I'll break down as we kind of move forward and wrap this thing up. So I want to get to your questions. You have up to 18 months to make the investment. All right. After you realize the gain, up to 18 months. Now there's some other gray zones around this, but you have a longer time than, let's say, a 1031 exchange. You can hold the capital gains in your business account. Again, also in the 1031 exchange, the money out of escrow goes to the QI, the qualified intermediary, not you. So that's a positive. You can also defer capital gains completely on a new asset if you hold it for over 10 years. What I mean by that, you sold your business, you take that money, roll it into an OZ fund. That OZ funds purchase a hotel, and let's say holds it for 10 years. Now, that hotel hopefully is grown in value, probably has grown in value in 10 years. That value, if you do things right, you are not paying any capital gains on that new value. That's the real big benefit for opportunity zones, is not only you can defer the gains that you went into, but if you hold it long enough, so this is not for the fix and flip, if you hold it long enough, you can defer the capital gains on the new asset that you invested in. What are some of the cons? Well, there's going to be a capital gain event 2026. Now, this is where I don't quite understand all the logistics around this, but there is, when you defer your capital gains, when you roll into the fund, they want you to pay some of that in 2026. And this whole world of opportunity zones, as I found out, it's new. So there's a bunch of nuances to this, and people don't know exactly, how things are going to play out, if you will. So that's why if you are considering putting this together, or you are considering investing in this, you want to make sure that you got a good CPA and attorney that you're working with. I just think, though, if you're going to invest in real estate, you need to have a good CPA and attorney that is part of your team. And that's whether you're buying single family houses just to rent out or fix and flip, or that's where you're buying, or if you're buying skyscrapers and putting together opportunity zone funds, make it happen. Gotta have somebody on your team walking you through this, right? And also somebody who's got some experience in doing this. It's been a few years now that it's been around. So there are attorneys, CPAs who have experience in this space, usually, all right? And remember, you're investing into a pooled group, so you don't have complete control over it. It's the same concept of investing into a group and the other structures that we talked about, all right? And there's also several unknowns, and it's subject to changes in the tax law. I will say this about the Biden tax plan: he's not planning on eliminating this. And in fact, I think what they're planning on doing is making sure that a lot of people who are doing these projects are actually bringing a community benefit. And this is supposed to be to create capital to build up stressed areas, not simply defer taxes. But some operators are just in it for the money, right? So again, when you're doing stuff like this, I talked about it before. Not only make money, make return, wealth, but bring value to the community that you're building. Real value, benefit, right? Bring economic life to an economically distressed area. That's important. I think that cannot be understated. All right. And as a wrap up, just in the comparison. Now let me just state this. If you've watched my content, I love 1031 exchanges. I live and breathe by them because I've come up and built my business through them. But it's good to have some alternatives out there. And plus, if you're selling stocks, you can't do a 1031 exchange of stocks. You're selling your company as well. So if you're selling other assets where you make capital gains, this is opening up. So OZ funds versus 1031, you got 18 months to invest versus 180 days. That's a lot longer time. And there is no 45-day ID period. I think in 1031 exchanging, the 45-day identification period is more stringent than 180 days to close. 180 days, you should be able to close whatever kind of deal. 45 days, though, to find the right deal, and that's tough, right? And you don't have to stick with like-kind investments. You can sell stocks and buy real estate. Sell real estate and buy stock, or stock in a business in an OZ, or you can invest in a business in an OZ. Don't have to be like-kind. You do lose absolute control over the investment because it is in the pools, in the fund. And you are in a pool, you don't have a deeded interest, and there is several complexities and unknowns to the OZs, right? But like any new frontier, that's what being an entrepreneur, that's what being a trailblazer is all about, is stepping out on faith, calculated understanding about what you're trying to do, but leading the field and blazing a trail. This structure allows for people, communities, to assemble capital, to build up and build out their communities, to hire people, to invest in their businesses. This is something that we need to be doing more of, a lot more of. And it's something that we're doing. To just give you an idea, I won't go into the details. I'm part of a group that has now purchased 2 properties, the old Soul Beat property in Oakland, the adjacent property. And we have established an opportunity zone fund to develop this property. And what we're doing with this property, we're going to develop, it's going to be commercial kitchen. They call them ghost kitchens. Going to be a little bit of a food court. There's going to be a multimedia center. There's going to be a restaurant, a flex space for meetings. It's going to be amazing. And we're going to bring a lot of economic viability, and we're going to bring a lot of jobs to this site, a site that's been dormant for several years in our beloved East Oakland. And it used to be the old Soul Beat. If you're from Oakland, you may not. If you're not from Oakland, you probably don't know. But Soul Beat was like Oakland's own BET, if you will. It was around for years, 80s and the 90s when I grew up, and it was part of Oakland. So many artists came up, advertising, or not advertising, with their music videos on that. So many small businesses advertised on Soul Beat. There's even there's a brother out there, Charles Johnson, who's got, bringing bringing Soul Beat back. So that is exciting. But this site's going to be alive. It's going to be alive in the next 6 months to a year as a result of this Opportunity Zone fund that we're putting together. And this is something that you can do in your neighborhood. So I'm going to wrap up and then get to your questions. I'm sorry, I went a little bit over, but here's some action steps. Decide if group investing is something that you would like to participate in, or something that you would like to arrange or coordinate. Link up with people you like and you trust. I think that's the first part, to figure out if you can do this, or if you got people in your network you would want to do this with. Decide what type of properties that you want to go after, and put in place your specific investment criteria. Every property is not a good property for you. All right. Figure out what you want and the criteria of what you want. Consider working with or starting a group on your own. All right. There's a bunch of big corporations out there, big capital funds. No. You want to just invest with this fund over here. You're good. You can do that. But I'm hoping is that some of y'all will start your own group or do something as an entrepreneur with this. All right. And this is the last thing I would say. Just don't do nothing. Take action for your family, for your community, and for your portfolio. Just do something. Even if it's, hey, this OZ thing ain't for me, but maybe going out and just buying properties is, or maybe flipping properties, or maybe getting my broker's license, maybe assembling a team of real estate agents, or maybe starting my business. I've had this idea about a business. Just do something. And ain't no time like the present. All right. That being said, I want to go to, thank you guys for your time and your patience. I want to go to the chat. I'm going to go to the Q&A first. Okay. I'm going to go Renell Reed. Okay, Renell, looks like you got all the questions in the chat. How do I joint investment group? Well, I think you were saying, how do I join an investment group? Okay, and there's a couple different ways. There's investment groups that are like, okay, we're raising money, you can invest in this. Then there's investment groups like online that you can but there's a group called Strive Wealth Builders. That's an investment group. And Deidre Harris she runs that. It's a great group. They have educational content, all kind of things. And then, they may have deals, and like, for instance, they do have a deal they're raising money for as well. So you can, if you have capital to invest, you can invest with a group that's being put together. You can, if you're just wanting to learn, you can invest with a group like Deidre's so you can learn and be a part of that. And someone says, do you know when they are coming back to the Bay Area? I'm assuming you're saying EYL, Earn Your Leisure. I don't know when they're coming back to the Bay, but I bet you they're going to be back after Saturday for sure. They are definitely coming back. Renell says, what do you think about investing out of state? I think it could be a very good thing, but it also could be dangerous. When I say it could be a very good thing when you invest outside of your state. Most people do that when they're in a state like California, New York, where everything's expensive. So if you go out of state, you need to get familiar with that market. Like MG, the mortgage guy, said on Saturday, you need to get feet to the street. If you're going to go invest in wherever you're going to go invest, don't just go online and look at it. Take a flight, get out there, spend a weekend, spend a week, get familiar with it. Don't just say, hey, I'm buying. And do not compare out-of-state property prices with California or wherever you're from prices. Compare those prices that you're looking at with other properties in that market, and that'll help you, stay out of trouble when you're investing out of state. And yeah, so we put together investment groups. So Renell, what I would suggest you do is make sure you book a time to meet with us. You can go to our website, infinityinvestments.net, and you can book an appointment. You can go to any one of our YouTube videos on YouTube, and in the descriptions, there's a Calendly link where you can book an appointment. So make sure you do that so we can sit down and talk some business. All right, and so now I'm gonna go to the chat. I'm gonna go back and start. Okay, George Hill, we gonna holler, man. I'm gonna give you a call and schedule a time to sit down and talk. I know you were saying we need to talk, so we're gonna do just that. Let me see what else we got. Alicia Kidd says, my name is Alicia, and happy to be a part of this. Well, thank you, Alicia. We're happy that you was here. Okay, people just tapping in. Alicia says, never made a bid on a property. I want to join the investment group. This will be recorded. It's going to be put on YouTube shortly. If not this afternoon, it will be put on tomorrow for sure on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to the station, stop catting off and go on there and subscribe to our Infinity Investment YouTube station so you can see this. All our content comes out on our YouTube. I just think YouTube, I love YouTube to go soak up game myself, and that's why I make sure I put all my content on the tube. So make sure you subscribe to that. George says, nice presentation. Oh yeah, George, we're gonna tap in. It's all good. Danielle says, love that history lesson. Yes, about East Oakland, man. If y'all don't know about Soul Beat, man, Google Soul Beat, man. Soul Beat was our BET, and it was sad to see it go, really was. And what we're trying to do is just bring some life back to the space, man. And we're going to do that. The properties have been acquired. The permit planning is in place right now. The OZ fund is formulated, and we haven't began raising capital for it. That's another discussion, but that's the wheels are in motion, all that stuff. And it is Ashley, or I'm sorry, Alicia, It is right across the street from a Kuma Marketplace. And I know CJ, who runs the Black Cultural Zone, very, very well. Another sister in commercial real estate I've known for years. Really great group. Okay, so we're doing some amazing things there on 73rd. All right, we're gonna bring some lights over there to East Oakland. And then there's all kind of, so Alicia, make sure you book an appointment. Let's sit down and talk. For sure, for sure. All right. And I think that is Brittany Thomas asks, are you familiar with trust acquisitions? All right. And yes, there's a lot of different kind of trust acquisitions, Brittany. So I've been a part of a few of them, from family trust, community land trust, real estate investment trust, special needs trust. There's all kind of different trusts. So Brittany, make sure you book an appointment. We talk. I definitely got some experience in trust acquisitions, but I have a feeling you might be talking about something else. So let's tap in on that and touch base. And if you own property, you need a trust. All right. And talk to your asset planner. You know, one of the banes of the existence of the real estate broker is dealing with probate. So when someone dies, I'll probably mess up the word, but it's called intestate. I'm probably sure I messed up the word, which is on the real estate exam. I should know it, right? Essentially, when someone dies without a will or a trust, the property has to go through what's called probate. And it is a horrendous process in which the state of California, which they are terrible at processing anything, gets involved and process the sale of the property. And a lot of times, Brittany says, yes, so terrible. They are. Just go to the DMV, and y'all know what I'm talking about, state of California. But they get involved, there's no will, there's no trust. Now, a lot of times the properties have to be sold just to pay for certain expenses. Versus if it was in a trust structure properly, you can avoid a lot of that. And say you own and you pass on, don't leave your heirs in a mess. Generational wealth we're talking about needs to be structured properly. Okay, and there's a lot of experts out there that can help you out. Arlena Green is one who comes to mind here in Oakland. She is a dynamic superstar when it comes to putting together trusts and things like that. George Hill said I was right. Intestate is dying. So I had it right. You know, I should have had that right. I took that on my first on a real estate sales exam back in 06, whatever that was, when I got into the business. So guys, it's been real. It always is. This is my passion, hopping on here and doing content for the people, for the marketplace. I really love it. I'm really inspired coming off the EYL event, just by the synergy that was in that room. I'm inspired to bring my physical seminars back. And our seminars was nothing like EYL, but it's where 10 to 20 to 30 people get together in a room and we get together. Oh, Javarte Bomino, one of my high school football teammates, Wildcats in the building. What's up, Oakland High Wildcats? Bomino, I see you. What's going on? Danielle says, thank you. Your passion shows. Well, I appreciate that, Danielle. Renelle says, thank you. I appreciate y'all for being on this. Please, can y'all share this? If this was good, can y'all share this with somebody? And maybe they will be inspired to do something with it. And maybe you are inspired, but share this stuff, man. I mean, this is great stuff. And we got to get it back. So I will be bringing them seminars back. And hopefully February, we're targeting February. I turned 40 in February. So for my birthday, I'm trying to have a dynamic seminar. And we're gonna let y'all know, as long as COVID we don't got Armored Con Part 5 and all of that, we're gonna be back in February. So and thank you, Brittany Aquarius. Yeah, we in the building. And thank you guys. We're gonna go ahead and end this thing. I really appreciate your time, your effort, your attention, your questions. Please stay tapped into us. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Kiss and hug the ones you love, show them love, and bring value to everything that you do. See y'all on the next one. Peace out.